Hiya, and welcome to Starla's Art Studio. And today I'm going to be talking about clothes, cloth folds, fabrics, and just, general basic tips about just drawing clothes and fabric in general. So, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention is how, for example, if you have this little piece of fabric, how on the left I'm showing that fabric, unless it's like a pretty heavy material or it's just laid down flat and spread out, most fabric won't just be sitting there without any creases or folds of any kind, like if it was on a table or a floor. Like, for example, if you have this tissue and then you just drop it somewhere, it usually won't just lie perfectly flat. There's most likely going to be some kind of bends or folds in there, especially if it's not in a completely flat surface. So the second thing I wanted to mention was how gravity, or just the environment that the piece of material is in, can affect it. For example, the drawing on the left shows how this piece of material or fabric or whatever is affected by gravity. It is being pulled downwards. If it is a lighter material, it is more likely to be affected by wind and things like that, moving it left or right, and more likely to have folds. To the right of it, I have this little example of free-flowing fabric, like if it was underwater or in space. You see this little hand, like for example, if it was dragging it to the right, it would spread out, almost like, let's say, a ice cream cone or triangle. It would have the shape where it looks pretty thin near around the hand is, where you're grabbing it, and then spread out as you drag it. Two more important things for drawing clothes are when fabric is being pinched and when it's being stressed. When it's pinched, it will usually be in places like where it's grabbed or tightened, like on your joints, elbows, anything like that. And I have this shown up with these little hands grabbing onto this fabric, and right below it where I have this kind of elbow. When an arm or leg is bent, you can see like the clothes will usually fold over itself and create things like creases and folds like shown in the drawing. And right next to that is an example of tension in the fabric. As you can see, the differences between the two, one dips down because there's less force on it, the gravity is way more on it than the actual force pulling it apart, unlike tension, which is pretty straight because gravity isn't affecting it as much. First, for drawing clothes, I'm going to show how to do just a basic little t-shirt. I have these little model dolls kind of bases right here. And on the left, I'm showing how not to do it. Basically just having a lot of flat, straight lines and pretty much isn't really affected by who's wearing it, if it should bend, curve in any way at all. On the right, I'm showing a more accurate way of doing it and how different parts of the clothes will usually bend, like I showed with the tension and the stress. A lot of parts of the clothes, like if there are any joints, like on the outside of your elbow, when you bend your arm, clothes will be stretched, or on the shoulders, and how there's certain creases, like for the underarms, when you have your arm down or out, how that will all affect the way the shirt looks. I drew a couple lines to signify basically where all the creases would be, like where it would bend, like near the bottom of the shirt, if it would fold over, like if you don't have it pulled all the way down, just kind of resting at the top of the hips or sides. The one on the left ends up looking a lot more stiff and lifeless, and as if it doesn't really belong in the picture. The next one is just a quick little turtleneck to show basically thicker, puffier kind of sweater look on bended joints or when they're just straight out, and where it will be most likely to fold over itself and things like that. On the left, again, I'm showing an inaccurate version of how to do this, and basically pretty flat, just like the one before. The turtleneck doesn't really show any dimensions, it just looks really flat right up on the neck and doesn't show many curves or any weight to it. And just like with the shirt, on the right I have the more accurate way of drawing this, with the turtleneck more curved down. It looks like it's really hugging the neck of this character. Around her arms, it goes down. You can see on the elbow, just like I mentioned before, the fabric is being pinched at the elbow and kind of curves in and then comes out and then goes down to the wrist. Based on the illustration on the right, I usually put the thicker and leftover, folds of fabric after a pinch, like for example on her arm or elbow. After that pinch on the elbow, it kind of humps over and goes down and onto her wrist. And because this is a long sleeve shirt, the sleeve on the sweater is going to sag a little bit at the bottom. It's going to be loose around her wrist and her arm. It's because her arms are down. If her arm was up, it would sag down, but it would still be affected by gravity, so it wouldn't be like right up to her wrist. And the next one is a jacket. I will be showing the jacket when the hoodie is off and when it is on. On the left, again, I'm showing an inaccurate way of drawing it, of again having everything look pretty flat, nothing really curves the way it's supposed to, and with the hoodie kind of being off. Though when I say off, I don't mean like actually off her head, I mean like it just doesn't look right. Like shown here, I erased the head because sometimes some people will just kind of draw it and kind of not really draw the rest of the head, and then it will end up looking cut off because I actually show the head, it actually wouldn't fit in the hoodie. It is either too small, it just wouldn't completely enclose the head. On the right, I am fixing the jacket by showing the folds that usually come from the hood. If you have a jacket, then you may notice that when you have it on and zipped up, then the sides of it will kind of point down and make this V shape. And then behind that, in the character, you'll make this little hump to represent the hood if it's not already on the character's head. A few other things to note is that when you add like the line that represents where the zipper goes up, it should have about the same curves as the side of the body. Like if it's at this 3/4 view, it should be like the line that represents the to the left line, so it kind of curves about the same way. And when you add the pockets, one should look a little wider than the other because of the angle. Okay, so for a more accurate way of drawing the hoodie on this jacket is like you're gonna have quite a few folds around the sides and most likely the back. Especially if their hair is up, then it's gonna seem a little stretched. It's gonna have a little tension that's the hoodie's gonna have on the hair. Quite a few people have their hair down when they wear their hood on, so I do later erase a little bun on her hair just to show the hoodie better when it's not around a lot of hair. Okay, so around here I'm drawing the hoodie and it looks a little large or just stretched out because I don't really see hoodies worn on top of ponytails or buns, but I do end up erasing it like I mentioned earlier and it looks a little better. And you can see the right versus the left, it goes out more, so it makes more sense that it would actually cover her whole head. This little technique with the hood can also be applied to like if you have this little character with a cloak, maybe with a hoodie. Like if they're this little magical character or something, they have this little hood and a cape or whatnot. But also keep in mind that this hoodie can be a little different than a cloak hoodie. Cloak hoodies may have a little more weight to the bottom of it. It may look sagging at the bottom instead of pointed at the top. Okay, so here I jump back to the shirt for a real quick second because I wanted to kind of show these little tips for like if you have a patterned shirt. And I wanted to show you guys a neat little trick you can do in Photoshop. Here I'm showing like if you were to do a little striped, or in this case a polka dotted shirt, then what you don't want to do is basically make the polka dots all the same size or just looking like straight, just flat stamped on circles. At an angle, especially like here on this shirt, the circles aren't going to be flat. They're going to be kind of curved or angled, especially if there's a fold. It's not going to be like the whole circle. Part of it will look cut off, or it can look like a semicircle. And I'm showing a little example of these kind of stamped on looking circles, how they're really about as lifeless as the shirt. They really don't look right. They're a little off. On the shirt on the right, I made sure the polka dots were not the exact same size because some may be longer, shorter, or cut off depending on where it is on the shirt. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys a neat little trick. I'm not sure where I saw this first, but I thought it'd be neat to show you guys if you didn't already know about it. So first you select a colored area, then you create a new layer right over it, and then right click on this layer, and there should be an option that says create clipping mask, and then you click on this. At the top of the Photoshop window, there should say file, click on that, look for a button that says place, then you can pick an image from your computer and then it will just throw it into Photoshop. And the neat thing is, it'll only put the image in that colored area. Once you have your image about the right size that you'd like it, there's a little button on the top right of the Photoshop window that looks like this, and you can use it to warp your image. And then you can just control multiple parts of it to change, and you want it to kind of match the way the shirt kind of curves and moves around, so it looks more like it's actually on the shirt. I'm not sure if you can do this in other programs, but I know you can do it in Photoshop. So if you find a similar way of doing it in other programs, then that'd be neat. Okay, so next, after these shirts, I'm going to be showing pants. So on the left, I'm going to be showing a less accurate way to draw it, how if you don't really draw the legs underneath the clothes, just a general tip for drawing clothes, you always want to draw the person first, have their position, and then just plop on their clothes on top so you know exactly how the clothes should be placed, if it should be affected by the legs or any specific things that could cause the shirt or pants to bend any certain way. Right here, I did a quick little demonstration of drawing pants or just some jeans. And next I have a quick little demonstration of some shorts. I did these little cuffed jean shorts to be similar to the jeans. A few basic things to make sure you have when you're drawing jeans is there's the little pockets on the sides, and for things like folds, usually the jeans will kind of wrinkle up around joints or any pinches, like let's say your knees. And that seam that goes down the side of jeans can look like fine little lines around the sides, and they'll usually look squiggly around folds and the side of the knee. Next, I'm going to be showing how to draw a skirt. This example, I kind of show first a very simple and flat looking skirt, but then on the right, I kind of show a specific kind of skirt called a pleated skirt, where it kind of has these certain sections where it's like curved up and down, and then you have these lines that go up. The way I like to do it is just first drawing these lines that go down, giving them little curves at the bottom, and then doing curves that go up to connect them and make this sort of pleated skirt look. I draw this kind of skirt quite often. This is the kind of skirt that I use whenever I draw my little Starla character. It's kind of fun to take the same techniques and kind of apply them to different sizes and shapes of different skirts. Next, I'll be showing two other kinds of skirts. One is kind of like this tutu looking skirt, and the other one is this straight column-like skirt. The trick for doing this kind of skirt is doing a lot of up and down kind of curve movements, and at the sides of each curve that goes up, you make a list to a certain area on what would represent a waistline on your drawing. Another thing to pay attention to in the drawing is that there's sort of a perspective look to the skirt, because the curves in the middle, like the up and down lines, are supposed to look wider than the ones in the edges. They're going to look kind of more squeezed because that's just the angle. And make sure you have these kind of lines on the bottom of the curves when they go down, because that shows the fabric on the other side, and because it helps actually have that look of the fabric actually folding up and down. When drawing skirts like this, it can help to draw two horizontal lines across if you want a guide to how high and low the curves for the skirt need to be. The next skirt is a straight column type of skirt, and this skirt is usually on professional or more formal outfits. This kind of skirt is pretty simple because if you have this little belt up top, all you need to do is make sure you have lines coming from there, because that's where the skirt would be pinched at the top, and then you would have the rest of it look pretty straight. It would be quite simple, and maybe a few lines in the front, or just it might be bent out a little bit depending on how the legs are underneath the skirt. And the last thing I'm showing is a simple scoop neck dress with cap sleeves, a ribbon waist belt, and a simple A-line skirt type. I chose this type of skirt because a lot of things about it can be easily changed to make a very different kind of dress, just by using a few different little techniques that I showed from skirts, or even experimenting and creating your own little types of dresses. Some things to pay attention to is that dresses kind of combine the techniques used in both shirts and skirts. So at the top, if the dress is long sleeved, there should be a bit of pinching at the joints, and if the dress, like this one, has a waist belt or ribbon, then there would be pinching there, like in the middle. There should be a few lines coming from the top and bottom of that little ribbon or belt. At the bottom, the dress could be like a pleated skirt, or it could just be a bit wavy at the bottom with a few lines in the middle showing the few light folds that would happen just because of simple movements or just a light breeze. Just like all the others, the left is the less accurate while the right is more accurate, showing the more proper places to place the creases and pinches and different places where there may be a little bit of tension on the dress. Okay, so that's all I have for right now. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you picked up some tips, techniques. I have Starla right here to remind you to stay warm in this colder weather, and I hope you have a stellar day. Bye!